I don't think healthcare professionals should pay student loans. I have to pay $200,000+ with an 8% compounding interest rate daily that my decent, amazing salary barely chips away at. And I gotta ask permission to my student loans if I can build a house, start a family, or go on vacation. Pisses me off. It's crazy. The only stress I have in my life right now, which is a lot, is because of my student loans.
This is how much money I owe in student debt for my physician assistant degree. A lot of this has to do with interest alone accruing. This amount is a literal around my neck, and I don't think I will ever pay this off. This really, I don't want to say like makes me suicidal, but like it truly makes it really hard to get out of bed every morning.
I'm making $280,000 my first year out of dental school, but let me tell you why I don't think you should become a dentist. First, I don't make $280,000, and neither do 99% of new grad dentists their first year, even their first 5 years out of dental school. I think it's a terrible financial decision for you to go to dental school unless you have family money, your parents are paying off your loans, you're willing to go into the military, or you're willing to work in public health rural areas and have your loans forgiven.
So our loan officer came back and said, LOJK, for the amount that we are approved for getting a house, and lowered it by $50,000 because of our student loans. So the number really wasn't an issue at first, but now that everything happening with student loans and everything, we'll have to start making payments on them in February for my husband and March for me. So our loan officer was like, LOL, nah dog, we're not approving y'all for that amount.
I'm making $280,000 my first year out of dental school, but let me tell you why I don't think you should become a dentist. First, I don't make $280,000, and neither do 99% of new grad dentists their first year, even their first 5 years out of dental school. I think it's a terrible financial decision for you to go to dental school unless you have family money, your parents are paying off your loans, you're willing to go into the military, or you're willing to work in public health rural areas and have your loans forgiven. So many pre-dental students are gonna Google how much does a dentist make and see, oh yeah, you can make $300,000, $400,000. The truth is you're an anomaly if you make that amount of money. On average, a general dentist makes about 30% of their production. The reason that this is important is because when you first graduate, you're gonna be slow, you're not gonna know what you're doing, you're gonna struggle with treatment and treatment planning, and you're definitely gonna struggle presenting large treatment plans to patients with confidence. Insurance fees have not kept up with inflation, meaning you as a dentist are gonna have to go out there, see more patients, do more treatment just to accommodate for your inflated living expenses and loans. Here is a great example. In 2010, it was $180 for someone to get a surgical extraction. In 2025, still $180. In 2010, it cost around $250,000 to become a dentist. Now, schools like USC, NYU, Midwestern, they're all estimating that 2029 grads are going to have $750,000 to $850,000 worth of loans. The problem with this is how many more surgical extractions are you going to need to do to account for inflation? It's all an impossible situation. There's an oversaturation of dentists, and there's just not enough practices sitting around with $1 million worth of production that they're just ready to fork over to a new grad dentist and pay you out on. It's just not worth it anymore. It's a completely flawed system.
She thinks that if you don't have family members to pay for your education, if you're not going to go to the military, if you're not going to pay it in cash, and if you're not going to go into public service to serve rural areas or urban areas that are underserved, you probably shouldn't think about going into dentistry. With that being said, as a first generation American, both of my parents are foreign. They were born in a completely different country outside of the US, came here in the 80s, and now have provided me the opportunity to take advantage of what the United States has to offer. And one of those things is upward mobility. A big part of upward mobility in the US is education. And it is a lot of times getting educated in certain areas that pretty much guarantee you to have at least a decent income. That is, think professional industries, think attorneys and lawyers, think medical fields, and that includes allied health, that includes other things besides doctors and nurses, right? Physical therapists, chiropractors, dietitians, all these type of things. Think engineers, now popular, stuff like this. So I think that even if you're someone who you have to go into debt in order to be able to afford to get a degree, like a doctor or a nurse or a physician assistant, even if it involves a lot of debt, I think it may still be worth it if you can minimize the debt and you know you're gonna stay in that career long term. And once you graduate, you do everything you can to negate that debt, of which she named a couple: going to the military, working in underserved communities, things of that nature. Because I do think that as a first generation American, that's one way to guarantee yourself a certain standard of life that you otherwise may not be able to. Of course, there's entrepreneurship And that's the popular thing nowadays, but I think that it's less guaranteed than something like this, even if it comes with a big debt bill.
Hey, so this is probably the most vulnerable post I will have ever made in the history of time. And for those of you who this little blue halo is already triggering you, I'm so sorry, but I'm gonna hopefully make you feel better. And I'm honestly having a weekly crash out. I need help from you as well. This is how much money I owe in student debt for my physician assistant degree. And before you go ahead and take out the phrase that is so commonly used, oh, but you knew how much you were taking out in the beginning. No, a lot of this has to do with interest alone accruing, while I am in a hell of a limbo of what we like to call administrative forbearance, trying to get into the SAVE plan. So I worked with a student loan counselor after I graduated, and I was told to consolidate all of my Direct Plus grad student loans to be one loan so that I could apply to the SAVE repayment plan. Right as soon as I started and submitted my application was when all of the chaos happened in the courts, where they just can't get their head out of their ass and figure out what they're doing. And so I never actually got into the SAVE plan. So I have been accruing interest at a 7% rate. I have not had to pay my monthly payment. My monthly payment has been $0 because of a previous tax return when I was making $0 income as a student. But still, this amount is a literal noose around my neck. And I don't think I will ever pay this off. I fear that I will not be able to ever own a home as someone still earning 6 figures salary, let alone children. I would love and aspire to have a child someday, but this really, I don't want to say makes me suicidal, but it truly makes it really hard to get out of bed every morning.
I'm gonna stop her there. I mean, that's a strong word to use, and I know she's kind of being hyperbolic, but hope she's not feeling that way. She said something here that I think is very, very important. The main issue is not the principal of the student loans themselves. The issue is the interest on those student loans. She said she makes 6 figures, so at least $100,000 per year. So if she had no interest accruing on her student loans and she was making at least $100,000 per year, she would have some hope of paying off that principal balance in a reasonable amount of time and going on with her life, buying a house, having kids, starting a family, all that good stuff. The issue is that, especially now while she's not making any payments through her loan, that interest is steadily accruing. And before you know it, it's going to balloon to a situation where she already feels as though it's insurmountable. I personally think, with my limited amount of information on this, I have done some research, but not as much as I want to or need to. I think one of the biggest public issues we're facing is student loan challenges. People in tons of student loan debt. It's kind of a catch-22, isn't it, if you think about it? Because you want to go to school to get a degree in something that's going to get you a good return on investment, like she did. She makes at least 6 figures a year. So that means that her investment, paying for education, turned out to provide a good return. The catch is that that money she borrowed to get that good degree, to get the good job, is accruing so much interest that it's putting the chokehold on her, to use her words. And then you ask yourself, well, then what do? You can not go to school and not get an education, which nowadays, many jobs, even if it's a job that before 1960, 1950, 1970 didn't even require a bachelor's degree or require a master's degree. Now, one of the requirements, or at least the preferred things that they're looking for, is a degree. And so now you're asking yourself, if I don't go get this degree, will I be able to demand a high enough salary to pay for the expensive way that life is becoming, with inflation and everything becoming more expensive?
I know I'm not alone. I know I don't even have it that bad, but I'm truly asking as a cry for help, how you compartmentalize the stress of something like this, knowing that you'll never, ever get out of debt, because it would take an act of God to take this amount away. And people repay the principal loan multiple times over in situations like me, but they never get rid of their debt because of the system at hand. And that is what is so about student loans for people in advanced degrees like doctor, nurse, anesthetist, nurse practitioner, physician assistant. What else can I think of? Any degree program that takes multiple, loans and at least 6 figures to take out to go to these programs. And I did this to get a better life for myself, get a salary that actually amounted to something for my future family. And yet this is what happened. And a lot of it wasn't even the fault fault of my own because I had no way of predicting that this would happen. Had no way of knowing that SAVE would not be around in the future. PSLF is my only option. I do work at a 501c3, but even then, the payment is like pushing almost $1,000 a month. And that will soon become even unaffordable for me. So I'm literally at a loss.
Okay, so my 2 cents, and please let me know in the comment section what you think some options would be for someone in this situation. My 2 cents is this: plan to suffer for another 5, possibly 10 years once you finally graduate and you're done with school and you start working. I know that sounds terrible because you just finished 4 years at least of undergrad, plus another 1, 2, 3, 4 plus years of advanced graduate study, depending on what field you go into. And so the last thing you want to do is delay your life further just to pay off interest, pay off your student loans. But I think that it's worth it for the long run to delay gratification. What I mean by suffer is do something you probably don't want to do. Go work in an underserved area. You may not want to go live in that area. You may not want to go work in those communities, but go work in those communities and don't do it begrudgingly. And they know that you're doing it begrudgingly. Go do it and put your brave face on. And that way you can get your student loans either forgiven or reduced or whatever. Or do the Dave Ramsey method. Rice and beans, beans or rice. If you're with someone, you do it together, where you literally cut out everything that is non-essential in your life, and every extra single dollar that you have goes to paying off your debt. And you delay buying a house, you delay buying a car, and when you do get a car, you get a bucket. You get a bucket, you do not get a loan. Avoid any other loans like it's the plague. Moving back with your parents if you have to do it. That's what I did. And don't just live off of them if, unless they want you to, like, oh, hey, listen, you're my kid. I want you to get out from under all this debt. Don't worry about it. Other than that, provide a mutually beneficial situation. Maybe you pay some bills, but use the extra income to pay your debt off. My overall point is suffer a little bit. I use the word suffer intentionally because it sucks. Another option would be someone like her who's a dietitian, start a side job. Maybe you work for a hospital as a dietitian. And then aside from that income, you start your own business to where you're giving private dietetic services to people who need it.
I don't think healthcare professionals should pay student loans. I'm gonna die on that hill. We are people who did things right. Most of us are type A. We don't have a lot of other debt. We said no to a lot of parties. We sacrificed a ton of stuff to get where we are. We said yes to 3 a.m. study sessions, studying our asses off to help other people. And then you're gonna tell me that in order to do that, in order to exist in a profession where I have to help other people or want to help other people, which is why I got into it, I have to pay $200,000+ with an 8% compounding interest rate daily that my decent, amazing salary barely chips away at. And I gotta ask permission to my student loans if I can build a house, start a family, or go on vacation. Pisses me off. Crazy. The only stress I have in my life right now, which is a lot, is because of my student loans. I wake up and I'm like, shit, I don't even want to look. Did I put enough in this month? That's not fair. Let us live. Let us breathe for a minute. It's been years of sacrifice to help your mother, to help your grandmother, to help your dog. And what? At least take away the interest. Is anyone listening?
Listen, on the surface, I love what he's saying. If you went to school to become a healthcare professional and you're providing a public service for public good, in a beautiful, perfect world, you wouldn't have to pay interest at all. Here's a problem with that. A lot of people who go to school get federal loans. As a matter of fact, 93% of loans out there are federal loans. 93%. Now, how is that money paid back? Well, it's paid back by you with interest. You're asking, why do I need to pay interest? Well, theoretically, from what I've read, the interest that we're paying back on our student loans, the federal government doesn't pocket that and use that for frivolous things, you might think. Supposedly what happens with that money is used to give out more student loans to other people who need it. Apparently, the federal government is in a deficit by billions of dollars with a B when it comes to the federal student loan programs that they support.
So our loan officer came back and said, LOJK, for the amount that we are approved for getting a house, and lowered it by $50,000 because of our student loans. So the number really wasn't an issue at first, but now that everything happening with student loans and everything, we'll have to start making payments on them in February for my husband and March for me. So our loan officer was like, LOL, nah, dog, we're not approving y'all for that amount. So let me show y'all these numbers. So this is my husband, $35,108, and this is mine, $121,264. So of course, we're obviously bummed out. I think I'm more so bummed out because I just feel like I am just kind of stuck in this financial hole, and I know that the path for me was to open my practice and right out of school and yada yada yada. But it's just kind of like, I'll look at my friends and how they start working right out of school, and I'm like, if I just started working right out of school, we'd be definitely in a different financial spot than where we are. But I can't compare. But it it's heavy. It's heavy because I'm working really, really hard at this practice. You know, if you've ever started a business, you work the hardest, but at the beginning stages, you definitely make like, you know, as if you're not working at all.
So for context, she is a chiropractor. And what it sounds like is she went into business for herself. She's opened up her own practice, or she already opened up her own practice, and she's in the beginning stages of getting that practice established and making that secure and stable. What I would say to her is, as someone too, I'm not speaking out of my ass here because, you know, I am someone who has investments, who runs businesses. I don't have a degree in healthcare, but I can relate. Just wait. There's no need to rush and take on more debt, i.e. a mortgage, whenever you just have started a business and you're trying to work through that. I don't know the details of their situation. Obviously, I just know what I've learned from the video. But to me, it's like, stay where you're at or even downsize if you can. Don't take on an extra debt, which is a mortgage, because at the end of the day, it is a debt unless it's bringing you money, and use that time and that money to focus on bettering and building your practice and then focus on getting the mortgage. You know, I think this American dream that we have is that we try to chase it and we don't really sit back and think, is this something that we actually need to do right now? Yeah, a lot of us want the white picket fence, the, you know, the family, the nice house, all that good stuff. And we, you know, if that's what you want, cool, I want that for you too. But I think that some people rush to get that, and at the stage of their life, it may not be time. And again, this is me just going off of what I've learned here from this video. I don't know what her husband does. I don't know how much debt, you know, what he does for a living. I don't know if they have kids or how many. I don't know if they're in a cramped situation. I don't know anything like that. This is just a general perspective. So let me know what you think. I think that there's a stage, there's a time, there's a place for everything. If you're going through a season of establishing your business, focus on that. And then once you get that established and secure, then you can move into the season of, okay, let me go ahead and get this house. Unless you're living in an area where rent is significantly more expensive than having a mortgage, which as of right now, that's probably not very many places, it may not even make sense because people fail to remember that owning a home is a lot more than just paying for a mortgage, just paying for the principal and the interest. You have the taxes, you have the insurance, you have the maintenance, you have the capital expenditures. Think roof, think water heater, think HVAC. You have all these different things that come up. And so it's kind of like a money pit, to be honest with you. So it's better, I think personally, and this is coming from someone who owns properties and who has owned properties for a while, that there's always something. So if I was her, I'd just focus on paying off these loans, getting my practice secure, and then go for the mortgage. That being said, guys, thanks for sticking around watching the video. Feel free to like, subscribe. Until next time, make smart financial decisions.